Good evening. Your saltwater guide, Captain Dave Hansen and Michael Fowlkes from the History of Sport Fishing and formerly Inside Sport Fishing. We should have a really good show for you tonight, gang. I am in San Felipe tonight. This has been a crazy week. We've been all up and down the Baja. You guys that watched the show last night know we rolled into San Diego about 5 minutes before we went live on the show. And all I could think about the whole time I was going live was the In-N-Out Burger across the street. Let you all know that it was absolutely as good as I could possibly imagine it to be. But I'm back eating tacos now. I'm down in beautiful San Felipe, Baja, California. I'm staying in one of my buddy's beautiful Airbnbs here with my buddy Ron. You guys have seen this Airbnb. I've turned it on to quite a few of you. The guy Norm that owns it here. It's a beautiful little Airbnb with a beautiful view of the bay here in San Felipe. We look right down into the harbor. We can see all the shrimp boats. Ron and I just had a nice dinner down on the Malecone, had some nice Al Pastor tacos, Michael. It was wonderful. Thank you for joining us. I'm so happy to have you as a co-host on Tuesdays. And I know we're going a little bit late. It's way past you and I's bedtime, but we'll try to get through it.
Yeah, we'll get through it. Yeah, as long as we're on the West Coast time, we're okay.
And then everybody that's joining us, thank you guys, Darren, Lisa, and everybody else that's going to jump on here right now. Thanks.
Hi, Lisa. Hi, Darren.
We got a lot of cool stuff to talk about. Your history of sport fishing, I just want to really get into that tonight. I know we're going to answer comments and questions from all of you, and whichever way the show goes, that's where it'll go. But I got a lot more questions for you, Michael, about this. As I was on Tom Rowland's podcast the other day, him and I were talking about you and all the cool things and that tarpon thing. Tom's super into that tarpon thing. The more I learn about it, the more I hear about it, the more exciting of that fishery that thing is. And you delved deep into it in the making of the history of sport fishing, didn't you?
Absolutely. Yeah, tarpon are an amazing fish. If you've never had a chance to fish them, it's like fishing topwater bass for 250-pound fish. I mean, they're just amazing. And the terminology everybody uses is how many fish did you jump today? And if you hook one, they jump. And it doesn't matter if you land them, you just jump them. So I jumped 12 today, but we definitely got into it early on in the film. When we first started this thing, it was all about Avalon and Catalina and West Coast and big game fishing and the birth of big game fishing off the island here. And once we started doing some more research and really dove deep into it, lo and behold, the first 100-pound fish ever taken on a rod and reel was taken in Florida. And it was in the mid-1880s, and it was taken tarpon, 100-pound tarpon. It was the first large game fish that was ever captured on a rod and reel using conventional. At the time, they basically had Kentucky bass reels, and that's what they were working, fishing these big fish with little bass reels.
That is incredible that you could land those fish back in those days. The drag systems were pretty primitive back then, weren't they?
You didn't have drag systems. It was your thumb on a piece of leather strip.
That's kind of primitive.
Yeah. Yeah, it's about as primitive as it gets. They didn't come up with a drag system until like 1913 when William Beauchene worked with George Farnsworth and A.W. Cox here, and they come up with Beauchene invented the star drag. So that was really the first drag systems. Were in the 1920, right in that area, 1913.
And if you go to here, well, I'm going to throw something out there, Michael, right now. This is, gang, we're going to put the QR. First of all,
hi, Jason.
I'm so excited always having you on here. I get going so fast and I forgot. Promar, thank you so much, Promar. Promar Ahi, without them, we can't do the show. Without Promar, none of this is possible. They're my biggest sponsor. They understand social media. They're in. There you go. They're showing the drag system back in those days. We'll talk about that in just a minute. I just want to touch on the fact Promar's been there for me for a very, very long time. I started out as pro staffer and now fully sponsored by Promar. They help me out tremendously. I travel with them. We We put on a lot of shows with Promar, and without Promar, I can't do what I get to do. And so everybody over at Promar, thank you very much. We have a cool little video we'll show you in a little bit with Captain Al Clowers using the Go Shrimp pump. And I just want to let you all know, you see the logo up in the top right corner, and we'll show you the QR code, the GT4 fluorocarbon. That is a remarkable product, Michael. That fluorocarbon is a clear fluorocarbon. It doesn't reflect light like a lot of the clear fluorocarbons. Once it hits the water, it's not reflecting the light. It's very, very supple, very, very easy to tie. And you guys can get all this stuff over at Promar Ahi USA.com. We'll put the QR code up in a little while. You guys get a discount. You get 10% off. There's the discount right there on the screen. When you go over to the website, you'll be blown away by all the products you guys are using on a daily basis that you don't even know Promar makes. So everybody at Promar, thank you so much for all the support, and thanks for supporting the industry. They give back a ton back to the industry. They show up at all the meetings. They're constantly there with the giveaways for the kids and everything else. It's just a phenomenal family-run company based out of Gardena, California. I've sent a lot of our members there. They're blown away by the hospitality and the love you feel when you walk in the building. So Promar, thank you very much for everything you do. So that reel that Elliot threw up on the screen a couple minutes ago, Michael, and Elliot, thank you for jumping in here, gang. Unbelievable, Michael, what Elliot does for you and I. It just,
oh my God. I wouldn't know what to do without Elliot. Neither one of us would, I don't think.
No. It would be impossible. But talk about that reel that he's so graciously throwing up there for us.
Well, that's a really good example of what the early drag systems look like. And all it is you can see right there on the back rear spacer bar, they attach a piece of leather. And before they came up with an internal drag system, it was a direct drive. So when you crank this way, the line came in. And when that fish ran, those wooden handles spun backwards. They spun backwards, and it would just bust up your knuckle. They're called knuckle busters, and they were a reason. In fact, the Tuna Club actually had a surgeon on staff during the summer months because so many members broke their fingers getting their hands smashed by the reverse direct drive handle spinning backwards. So, yeah, it's where we are today, where we were 100 years ago. Unbelievable, night and day difference in the equipment that we have available to us.
And that's what your film depicts. That is what one of the most phenomenal things for me and Elliot both, when we watched the film the first time, we were both just blown away by the history lesson. Now, Elliot being from England, he learned a lot about the United States of America from the docuseries, and me being from the United States of America, but forgetting to show up to my classes all the time, I learned a ton about the United States of America. There's the great Kelly girl. I have a brand new couch in the back of the truck, gang. That's how much I love Kelly. I just drove 1,250 miles one way to go get Kelly's couch, and now I'm driving back with it.
Well, you're a good man, David. You're a good man.
At least today I am.
Yeah. And you know what side of the bread the butter's on, I'll tell you that.
Yeah, that's for damn sure. Absolutely. Everybody, I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna put Michael on the spot right now. We're gonna do something. Michael doesn't even know this. I am going to fly up one lucky person. If you download Michael's docuseries, right? If you hit that QR code when Elliot puts it up on the screen, or I put it, there you go. You download that QR code tonight. You sign up tonight. We will pick one lucky person out of tonight's show, and you're going to get to go with Captain Dave to Michael's museum right behind you right there. I'm going to fly up. We're going to personally take a tour of the museum behind you, but the only way that's going to, and it's tonight only, you've got to hit the QR code right there on the screen. You got to do it now. I know it's hard. You have to pick up your telephone and you have to hold it there. That's probably going to it's probably really hard for a lot of you. Maybe you can get your wife or your boyfriend to hold it up for you, and then grab the QR code, and we're going to pick one lucky person. But if you don't purchase it, you're not in. So here they come, Michael. They're jumping on now. Look at that. 1, 2. We already got 3 downloads. Guys, it's simple. You put your phone right there. You download it. We're going to pick one person, and we'll let you know tomorrow. And you're going to get to go up there and go for it too. When you go into Michael's museum, you're going to be blown away. There is so you. Todd Manser and I, we've been in the industry our whole lives. When we come up there, we're just mesmerized every time. We miss so much stuff. We're like, oh my gosh, how long have you had that? You're like, the whole time.
Yeah, there's so much good energy in this room. It's like when you look at this room and actually start to engage in a lot of the photographs and some of the jigs and the rods, it just, they actually emanate history. You can actually feel the vibrations coming off of this stuff. And it's just such an amazing collection. And I'm so thankful that my mom 50 years ago said, hey, you need to collect something. I said, I don't want to collect anything. She said, you need a hobby. You need to collect something. I said, nah, I don't want to do anything. And I was with her and we went to a swap meet, and sure enough, there was all these bass lures, 50-year-old wooden bass lures with these glass eyes and all these great paint jobs. And I went, oh, those are cool. So I'm buying these beautiful jigs for like $2 a piece, $3.50, and it all started with collecting early bass lures, bass plugs. Bungs, they call them back in the day. Bass bungs.
There's just, oh my God, all the little tickets you have from all the old sport boats and the old brochures and the
leaders, all the leaders that Elliot just put up, those are just phenomenal. They're the tickets. Yeah, it's just, there's so much history in this room. I was thinking after these fires we've been dealing with here just up the coast, I haven't been able to sleep very well at night, and I'm thinking, oh my God, I gotta get all this stuff out of here and into a museum somewhere, So anyway, my perfect scenario dream would be to find someone that wants to buy an old house in Avalon on one of those side streets and convert that house to a fishing museum. I just think it'd be so cool. Make it a free fishing museum for anybody that wants to go in and check it out.
Oh, that would be incredible. Then everybody could see it.
Yeah.
But gang, we're not going to tell you where Michael lives. We're not going to talk about that. But I'm telling you, when last week when we were on the show, none of these fires had started yet. This has all been since we saw each other 7 days ago.
Yeah.
It's absolutely devastating. And Michael lives in an area that's very susceptible to that. And you had one very close to you very recently.
They backfired. They backfired at 2:00 in the morning when the wind shifted. They backfired right along the edge of our property here in the canyon and backfired the flames back into the main fire. And fortunately, we were okay. But everything you see in LA, like all the pictures, it's Laguna Beach. I mean, you can see the devastation that happened up there in Malibu. It could happen down here just as easily. So it's frightening, to be honest with you. That not so much for our safety, because we're pretty aware of what's going on and we get the hell out of Dodge. But I'm looking around this room thinking, man, this goes up. There's no replacing it.
No. Well, that's like, I was listening to a couple of the old movie stars that are up there on the hill, and they were saying they lost. Well, Silence of the Lambs, Anthony Hopkins, he lost all of his. The guy's 80-something years old. He lost all of the old memorabilia that he's done what you've done. He's collected that movie memorabilia. It's gone. Yep. It's gone. He was the only one that had any of it, just like you are the only one that really has that connection back to the history of sport fishing.
There's some guys, Dave, that have really amazing collections. Steve Morris, up in Oxnard, he's got one of the most phenomenal collections I've ever seen. And Kenny Sertz has really built up his collection. There's a couple other guys that collect, and John's got a great collection. So there are a handful of guys out here on the West Coast that have really stepped up and collected a lot of this gear. I think most of them have done so to help preserve it and maintain it, So it's pretty unique. It's a pretty unique situation. And yeah, somebody I think is going to have a really good time cruising around this office when they get here.
Absolutely. And gang, what we're doing tonight, all you got to do is hit that QR code that we had up on the screen a little bit ago. Get the history of sport fishing. It's very, very, very affordable. It's less than a quarter of a tank. I can tell you how much a tank of gas cost. I think I bought 8 of them here in the last
in the last 24 hours.
Yeah. So it's way cheaper than a tank of gasoline, and you're going to be blown away at all you're going to learn. But one lucky person tonight is going to win a trip with Captain Dave to go to Michael Fowlkes' museum, where he's setting right now, where he sets and edits all this history of sport fishing, all the other videos you see him put out, all the pictures, everything coming out of that museum right there. We're going to go for a tour. We're going to go up to Michael's house. You're going to get to have a tour with me and Michael in the museum, but you got to hit the QR code. You got to download the history of sport fishing. You got to purchase it. I mean,
He says, we got it. John goes, we get it.
Well, you don't, because there's people coming in and coming out. Right now we have 51 people. A minute ago we had 24. John, you're very, very lucky that you've been watching it since it started today. Some of you are lucky, but once in a while we have to repeat ourselves because we have new people coming in and out all the time.
Hey, well, let's talk about your recent post here. I want to talk a little bit about your 68 million views. Come on, David, 68 million views?
No, it's not that many. It's only 34 million views.
Oh, 34 million. Okay.
But it's only been 12 days, so it might get a couple more. I don't know. Today it went up 450,000 views just today.
Think about that. 450,000 people today looked at it. And 38 million people in the last 12 days have looked at your post.
There it is.
It's so cool. Yeah, look at that. Look, that's just so cool. Congratulations, and what a great menu tip you gave everybody. Add a little salt and pepper to the bone marrow.
I just edited and I'm sending it to Elliot when we're done with the show, but I just edited the portion of it, which I think all these millions of people are ready to see, of me actually eating it.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
You're going to get to see me actually eat it, and you're going to get to see the great expression on my face when I put that in my mouth.
Oh, John just said we got it as we're happily purchased it. Thanks, John. I thought you were telling us to shut up. I can't wait to see you swallow that thing whole. It's almost like somebody eating their first tuna heart. You know, it's like, don't chew it, don't bite it, just swallow it.
And Tommy Gomes is so funny because he's like, okay, put it in your mouth. Now hold it in there and let the flavor explode in your mouth. I'm all, you're a sick man. You are a sick, sick man.
No, he's not the one eating it. You were.
We're going to get banned for talking like this. It's pretty good. The QR code's going to come right back up on the screen here again, gang. You can see the QR. There you go. There's it is for all of you that are having a hard time figuring out how to get it. Grab it with your telephone right now. We're going to give this away tomorrow. I will announce tomorrow on the show. Tomorrow night, the show will be at 6 o'clock. My good buddy Ron and I are leaving San Felipe at 5 o'clock tomorrow morning. And we're going to cruise on down, and we'll be in Loretto tomorrow night. And we'll be doing the show live from Loretto tomorrow night. And it'll be at 6 o'clock again. And then everything works perfect. We should be in our house in Cabo San Lucas on Thursday. And
will you do the show from the new couch?
Yeah, well, we'll do some videos from the new couch. Absolutely. Everybody needs to.
I'm not saying some video. I'm saying the show.
I'll get Kelly to sit on the couch with me.
Okay.
And look at the price, gang. Elliot just threw the price of this up on the screen. Each video is $4.99. It's a 12-part docuseries, or you can pay $49.99 and get it for the year, which is pretty spectacular.
Yeah. I am so proud to have done what we did with this show, and so honored to have had the opportunity to produce something like this, which, you know, we're not selling a new net or a fancy pair of, you know, polarized sunglasses or a new 2-speed reel. We're selling the essence of what the sport of fishing is all about. We're selling the heart and soul of why we love to fish. And I think we've captured it pretty well, that people have been writing up and saying some really great comments. Like one guy said, this doggone thing belongs in the Smithsonian Institute. And another one said it's the best documentary he's ever seen. So I've been sitting in here for 4 years pretty much by myself, and getting this feedback, it means the world to me to hear what you guys think about it. And good, bad, or indifferent, don't hesitate to let me know. I mean, if there's things in there that you feel like we really messed up on, or if there's something that you really liked or that we missed, let me know, because this thing, it's a living, breathing, it's a living, breathing part of my soul.
Well, you spent a bunch of your life putting it together. Real quick, gang. Normally at the 20-minute mark, we show a cool video from one of our sponsors. We have this great video that Captain Al Clowers made us with the brand new stainless steel Ghost Shrimp pump. I'm just going to throw it up there, Elliot, right now. I know you're on here, but I got this ready to go. Here, check this out, you guys.
Hey, what's up, guys? Captain Clowers here with Promar Ahi USA. They came out with a brand new Ghost Shrimp pump, state of the art, best one on the market. Stainless steel with beautiful features like these really sturdy handles. The exit hole is on both sides, so you don't get any air bubbles when you pull, on your stroke up. And the end of it is really sharp, so it goes in the sand or the mud really easy. All the components are really accessible, where you can change the grommet and stuff like that. I've used a lot of pumps over the years, stainless steel ones as well, and this one is top notch. So I'm out here to show you how easy they work, and let's go over here and check it out. So all these little holes right here are Ghost Shrimp houses. So you go over the little hole and pull, and it's very easy. There's a bunch of small ones right here where we're at, but there's one right there, honey. See that? So here's a Ghost Shrimp right here. These are the perfect bonefish size right here. But just a couple pulls on the Ghost Shrimp pump, and we got some Ghost Shrimp. So if you guys are looking for a really cool stainless steel Ghost Shrimp pump, go to PromarAhiUSA.com and get.
Thank you, Captain Al Clowers. There you go. There's the QR code. Go right over to the website. Grab yourself a Ghost Shrimp pump or some of the other products over there. You get 10% off. If you can't see the QR code, you don't know how to use it, just as you're checking out over at Promar, put in the code YSWG and the number 22, and you're going to save 10% on all the products like Elliot was showing you earlier, the GT4 fluorocarbon, the Akara jigs, the bait scoops, the squid scoop that I've been showing you guys for a while, the mesh that you throw in the water and pull through the squid. There's so much phenomenal product over there. Don't be shy to go look around after the show today. The QR code's up there right now. Grab it with your phone. Don't be shy to look over there and see. You'll be blown away. You're going to go, Promar makes that? I've been using that forever. Most of us don't even know. They make everything. Sabiki rods, gaffs, nets, bait scoops, all the hoop net gear, all like Lisa was saying, the pink gloves, the gray, blue gloves, all the gloves, everything you need, the lights, the sticks, the buoys, the net itself for hooping, the bait tubes, everything. Go to Promar and check it all out. All right.
Ben's one of the coolest people I've ever met, too. That whole family and that whole organization up there is just first class. They're a bunch of people that love to fish, And
they love when I come in there. That's all we do. We go up there to make some videos, and we end up talking fishing for 10 hours in the shop.
Yep.
Then we're like, hey, I got to make those videos. Yep, we're going to make those videos.
We'll shoot those.
All right.
Very cool.
Gang, there's a lot of people that just jumped in. We went up to 70 people watching. Now we're back down. We're just going to show you this QR code for Michael's history of sport fishing as we talk about it. And like we did last week, we're going to open up the rest of the show, and this is going to go down whichever way you guys send us. Michael will answer your questions, which is pretty cool to have the producer of the show live here to ask any question. He's not only the producer, he's also the director. He's also the guy that edited every single piece. So you tell him a part that you liked, he's going to tell you exactly how he got it, where it came from, what he did with it, and how he put it together, which is pretty special if you ask me. I think it's pretty cool, Michael.
Thanks, David. I appreciate that.
All right. Daniel just posted over there real quick fishing. He's got that friend of his that you kind of helped you make the video.
Steve Morris is real quick. He was one of the engineers that designed it. And Steve's one of the cool. His house was right. He sent me a picture of his house, and across the water, and there's the houses in front of him, and then the flames were right behind that. So he was very close. His whole museum was right there. So anyway, yeah, Steve's way cool, and that quick release is unbelievable on the reel seat.
No, it's so clean and so perfect. And it's what's been missing from our industry. It's just it's gonna revolutionize it, and we're gonna get together and start doing some stuff, Daniel and I, and you guys will be very happy if you haven't seen it. If you come to the PC or I know you'll be at the Ventura show, Daniel. They can stop by the booth and see it for themselves. It's a pretty spectacular reel seat on the rod. You guys are gonna love it. But what we're doing tonight, gang, we got a bunch of new people on here. You guys, if you purchase the History of Sport Fishing 12-part docuseries, it's going to enter you into a contest. We're going to pick one person tonight to go personally with me to Michael's museum where he's sitting right now. And you're going to get to go for a tour of that. We'll probably end up having lunch afterwards, but it's pretty spectacular. It's right there in Southern California. So hit that QR code, get this, and then let's see if we got anybody got any questions about this docuseries. You want to know anything about it? As Michael and I talk, we will look for your questions. So you were telling me something about I'm sorry, I'm all over the place, but the largemouth bass fishery was garbage. And then I watched what you were saying before they started doing all this stuff. That was known as a junk fish, a garbage fish. And then how did they get into making it like the fish that it is today, the multi-billion-dollar industry?
That's a phenomenal story in and of itself. That could be a whole series, to be honest with you. We had to really trim a lot of information out to get to the crutch of it. But bass originally were only in South Florida. Largemouth and smallmouth bass, both were their only habitat was South Florida. And at some point, they started doing what they call bucket brigades, and they'd catch these fish, put them in buckets, and they'd horse and wagon them over to another body of water, and they dump the bass back in a pond or something that was away from the lake, and then at the completion of the Transcontinental Railroad, they started using railroad cars, and they had those big, you've seen those big old milk crates, milk containers,
and milk jugs.
And they would load these bass in these milk jugs and transport them all across the country, and then dump them into the different waters. And the bass are so hardy and so resilient and so adaptable that it's the most. We have more bass today than we've had ever in the history of this country. So the bass populations are extremely strong, and they're phenomenally adaptive fish. And originally, like you were saying, they were considered a coarse fish. They were considered a junk fish. Trout obviously was the elite, and the guys that first started fishing were all fly fishermen. So as it moved into, the first Kentucky bass reels were made in the late 1700s, and so before that it was just everybody just fished fly rods, and so as the bass became more popular and spread across the country, more and more people just started to fish it. And the story there's a couple of stories that are just phenomenal. One of them is a story about Bill Dance. And we worked with Tom Rowland on some of the footage that he'd shot with Bill. And Bill's talking about how he got his TV show started. So that's a phenomenal little segment in there. But prior to that, there's a gentleman by the name of Ray Scott, who in 1966 was out bass fishing with his friend. And they got blown off the water. It was all stormy and miserable. And so he came back in and he took a shower, and he tells the whole story in first person. And he was sitting in his hotel room in his underwear watching the NCAA basketball tournament. And he thought to himself, why doesn't fishing have a tournament? Why doesn't fishing have something like this? So basketball, football, baseball, hockey. So he set out to create the first bass tournament, which he did. And it's just a phenomenal story to hear about what he had to do, where he went, what he did, and how he got BASS started. And it's just a phenomenal story. And everybody that fishes knows where it is today. It's a multi-billion-dollar business. And Kevin Van Dam, I mean, these guys that are fishing on that level are it's the Super Bowl of fishing in terms of. I think in terms of the amount of skill it takes to win a bass tournament, supersedes. And I'm not saying anything bad about saltwater tournaments because they're intense and it takes a lot of teamwork and a lot of skill to compete at a high level in saltwater tournaments. But it's a team effort. There's a lot of, the boats are involved, electronics. There's just so many things that are involved in winning a saltwater tournament. Where in a bass tournament, it's just you and the fish. And the individual angling skills that it takes to compete at that level are unfathomable to me. I mean, I'm still trying to get my backlash out, and these guys already have limits. So it's a beautiful fishery. One of my favorite fish to catch is topwater bass. Put a little popper out there right before in gray light and watch that thing explode. Oh my God! And plus, they don't kill you after you hook them.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
There's a guy on J Bay. He's saying, Michael, you tell the best stories. That's what this whole docu-series is all about. You're getting these stories in Michael's voice. He's relating them to us. And it's just every bit of it is so relatable, Jay. So hopefully you download this QR code and get a chance to go watch the history of sport fishing. If any of you have any questions about the history of sport fishing, you've watched it, you like something, like Michael said, even if you don't, tell us. Let us know what it is you didn't like about it. We need to know. This is a living, breathing thing. And it's something that we want to know what you guys think of it. But there's enough people downloading, there's enough people watching it that we think you guys like it.
Yep. Billy just said it. Bass is so popular because it's popular because anyone can do it, and just about any body of water in the United States right now has bass in it. That's not a stagnant, but lake, pond, river. Not so much the rivers, but lakes and ponds, bass ponds, and the farm. I love it. But somebody said, "What's your earliest childhood memory of going fishing?" Well, I remember when I was a kid, little kid, probably 3 or 4 years old. My dad and my grandfather took me out bass fishing, and that was the first time ever. And we're in this boat, little rowboat. It's windy. We're up in some lake. It's just blowing like hell. And I remember we had to tuck into this little cove because it was kind of calm behind the cove. And I didn't think we'd ever catch a fish. The conditions were so bad. I didn't know the difference. But all of a sudden, my dad's rod just went full on bendo. And it's just straight down. I'm thinking, oh my God, my dad. And I'm thinking, Dad, you're stuck on the bottom. You're hooked up on the bottom. And he's, no, it's a fish. And I go, that's the bottom. Nothing in the world could pull that hard. And he pulled up this bass, and I just went out of my mind. I couldn't believe that something could bend a rod that hard and pull that long and that hard and be alive. I thought it had to be a rock. So that was my first experience on the water with my dad and my grandfather. And they gave me a rod and reel for Christmas that year. I was only 3 or 4. I mean, I was just a tank. And it was a little short plastic, like a Zebco rod and reel, one of those combos, and had a big plastic hook on the end of it. And our neighbors, my grandparents' neighbors down the street, had a goldfish pond. And I would take my rod and reel down there first thing in the morning and go fish that goldfish pond all day long. From sunrise to sunset. And I was 4. And I'm like 2 blocks away from my grandparents' house. And they'd call, and yeah, he's down here fishing the goldfish. And it took me a while, but I finally realized that if I took some Velveeta cheese and rubbed it all over that big plastic hook, it was as big as the fish. They couldn't eat it, but they'd nibble on it. And just getting those nibbles were enough to keep me pumped. So, fortunately, I was introduced to the sport at a very young age, and I took to it like water. I think Barry Breitenberg in the show says it's the water calls my name. And I think when we have that, we're just one of the fortunate people in the world that have connected to a sport and an activity that is in line with our heritage, in line with our DNA. I mean, it's, hunting, gathering, fishing, it's part of who we are as human beings. And be able to go out today in today's society and be able to experience that, what a gift. So Tom Rowland asked me yesterday, he goes, what's the one thing that you would suggest to people to help the industry? And I said, take a kid fishing. And you've done some great videos on that too, David. I mean, it's like you talk about, it doesn't matter what you catch, where you go, what you do, just get a fish on the end of the line for the kid. And then you flay them out, you show them how to take care of the catch. And then on the way home, you stop by McDonald's and you get a chicken sandwich and tell them it's a fish sandwich, and they're going to love it. So you've done some great video on the kids, but honestly, our industry is under a tremendous amount of pressure right now. That's not being talked about. It's not being publicized. It's not being talked about in the news. But there is an extreme environmentalist group across this country that wants to abolish the sport. Period. They've told us. They said our goal is to abolish the sport within 10 years. They think that man should only interact with nature as an observer. We shouldn't participate. We shouldn't hunt. We shouldn't fish. And if we don't pay attention to what's going on behind the scenes, and you don't have to pay attention as an individual, but you do have to let your voice be heard. So just make sure that if you love to fish, you're letting your legislative branch or your congressman or your senator, let them know how much you love to fish. And the best way to do that I know of, David, is to just go to the CCA or ASA, American Sport Fishing Association, Keep American Fishing, and just register and let them know that you support the sport. And if you can donate $5, it'll help. But most importantly, let your voice be heard. Take a kid by the hand and take him out and let him catch a fish. Because as Flip Pallett says at the end of the film, did a phenomenal interview with Flip. He said that his biggest fear is not having enough young people involved in the sport. And in a generation or two, if you don't love something, you're not going to protect it. So the kids, if they're engaged like us, we love to fish. So we're doing everything we can to help protect it. But if we don't pass that baton on to our kids and our grandchildren, there's some people out there that think we shouldn't fish, just like some people out there don't think fire hydrants need water.
Yeah, so that's kind of hard to imagine that they don't think fire hydrants need water, and they're the ones that are running the state. And then they're also the people that are trying to stop us from fishing.
Exactly.
So a lot of you out there have been listening to me day in and day out talking about this big meeting that's coming up February 12th. Well, the reason we don't have the connection to the meeting yet is because they haven't put it out. By law, they have to put it out 14 days before the meeting. So we will have it 14 days before the meeting. We will talk about it every day from now until the meeting. We will talk about it, but we will show you the QR code. Elliot's going to put it all together for us, and we're going to talk about it every day leading up to it, because the barred sand bass is what they're after right now. That is the fish that built the West Coast fishery. There's nothing else. If you look back in history, every one of us, Michael, Frank Lepresti, Dave Hansen, we just spent a couple days with Roy Rose at his house, and he was just shocked they were about to take away the sand bass. He's like, what? Because he's got little kids. He wants to take them sand bass fishing.
Well, it's like Tim just said, his kids love fishing. And I don't know if you heard today, but today they just announced that NOAA just banned 35 species of fish in Florida. You can't catch 35 species of fish right now in Florida.
Wow. Well, NOAA's working for the other side. They have since the beginning of time. They're not on our side, no matter what. Even though when I first went down the rabbit hole with the death of all the whales on the East Coast, that's when I found out that even though we grew up thinking Noah was there to protect they're not there to protect the ocean. They're there to get that money. They're there for that money. And whoever's going to pay them the most money. And they put out a report yesterday morning, and Ron and I were looking at it while we were having our coffee before we started on the road yesterday. They put out a report. NOAA put out a report saying they cannot link a direct correlation to the death of the whales to the wind turbines. So I'm sorry, gang. That right there just tells me they're full of crap.
It's all lies.
I don't want to get sued, but I'm just telling you, that's bull. Those whales never died before. 2 whales died in 35 years on the East Coast. This last year, we lost over 50 whales on the East Coast.
It's the high frequencies, that just completely disorientates them.
They don't know what to do. That hearing in their head, they don't know what to do, gang, whatever. It's just so sad. And then they just did that. They just did that to the fish.
Yeah.
What?
Well, Randy just called in and said, I'm a Florida man here. I was going to see if I could find I don't know if I can find the link that they sent me this morning about it, but it just churned my guts. Yeah, look it up. It's NOAA. Yeah, I can't find it. Sorry.
We'll post something about it.
Yeah, but the point being, for us on the West Coast, they're talking about doing the same thing for our sand bass, and it's just.
That is the fish that built the West Coast. If you go to Michael's museum there and you look at all the stuff going on and all the sport boats that were built after World War II and all that stuff, it was all centered around the barred sand bass that migrate into California from Mexico. This is going to do it. This will be the final nail in the coffin for the Southern California fishery. Gang, they've already taken every single other thing away from us. We barely can fish for anything in Southern California. There's no science done on any of this. There has never been any science.
All politics.
It's all emotionally driven.
It's all politics. Yeah, it has nothing to do with science. And bass, barracuda, and bonita is what I grew up fishing. And I mean, it is. It's been the staple of our industry in Southern California for 75 years. And they migrate in and out, and there's 10, 15 years where you'll see very few sand bass, but then all of a sudden they'll migrate right in, and there's thousands of them up there off the flats, all the way up and down the coast. So, it's.
And Michael, a lot of people I've heard over the last few years, like the sand bass are gone. No. They're not gone. It's cyclical. We're in a warm water cycle. We're not in a warm water cycle anymore. Now we're in a cold water cycle. This year, it's going to be the year of the sand bass, and
we'll see them come back.
Maybe the albacore. It could really, really be the year of the albacore too, because we're in a cold water cycle. There's anchovies and all the bait barge. There's a big giant seismic shift going on in Southern California for fishing right now. The amount of squid. You see all the videos I post about all the squid.
Tonnage of squid. Tonnage.
And it's going to be unbelievable to get out there and go fishing for a fish that we're not allowed to catch. It's just going to be so sad to think of. And gang, what happens when they take stuff? They never give it back.
No, they'll say, we're going to close this section for a 5-year period. They never reopen it.
Right out in front of you. When you drive down your street and get to that T, and you can either go to Newport or go to Dana Point, right in front of there, one of the most prolific kelp beds in all of Southern California. Can you imagine what must be living in there now? We're not even allowed to even look at it.
8 miles of Laguna Beach, 4 miles in each direction off Main Street there. 4 miles in each direction, 8 miles, 3 miles offshore. You're not allowed to have a rod and reel on your boat. Come on.
It's so crazy. It's so sad that that's going on. Gang, those of you that just joined us, if you see the QR code up on the screen, we're giving away a trip to Michael's museum where he's sitting right now. All you got to do is download the QR code and purchase the history of sport fishing. It's really going to set you back a bunch. Less than a gallon of gas, $4.99 per episode. to watch the most unbelievable history of our industry, the history of sport fishing. You guys are already all part of this fishing thing, or you wouldn't be watching us right now, gang. So get a hold of this. And then you got an opportunity to win a tour of Michael's museum, which is going to be absolutely spectacular. I can't wait to pick the name out of the hat tonight and announce you tomorrow. It's going to be spectacular. Make sure you watch tomorrow. And those of you that don't know, tomorrow we'll be live at 6 o'clock again, because I'm driving up and down the Baja Peninsula, dragging a couch, and my buddy Ron up and down the Baja Peninsula, trying to get a couch home to Kelly girl. It's her Christmas present. There's a big giant couch in the back of my truck. We're on the downhill run now. We're in San Felipe. We'll be in Loretto tomorrow and Cabo on Thursday. And we'll be back to normal on Friday. We'll have a guest. We'll be back to normal, 12 o'clock Pacific Standard Time. But the next 2 nights will be at 6, just like now, because I got to spend the day driving.
Hey, Ryan just posted up that he'd already bought the series. Is he qualified to win the tour? I'd say yes.
No, we don't even like Matt Ryan.
Oh, we don't?
No. Yeah, everybody is, but we got to get you guys to purchase this thing. What?
People need to buy the VIP. If you get the VIP, you get those amazing extra videos.
Okay, did you hear that? Ron's here and he's saying, guys, he purchased it. My buddy Ron, who's driving with me, my sober companion, and he's saying, forget about all that. Get the VIP so you get all the extra stuff that Michael has. Forget about buying the $4.99. Get the VIP is what Ron's saying.
I bought it.
Kelly wants to know where you are. She thinks I'm hanging out down here with some gal. There he is. Whoop, there he is, Kelly.
Oh, hey, Kelly. Hey, Michael.
How you doing? Yeah, thanks. And also,
I got the VIP right when it came out, and it was just one thing after the next. I'm a
binge. You're a binge watcher. Ron loves to binge watch, so he got everything you had to offer.
Cool. And the VIP package, it has 25. It's almost 50 hours of programming out of 24 of the best films out of 30 years of inside sport fishing. So we put the best of the best at inside sport fishing: big boat, big fish, deep color, jig chuckers ball,
The
marlin,
tuna.
all those are in there. So in the VIP package is really a robust package, and also a percentage of every subscription is being donated back to conservation too. So just know that when you do subscribe, a little bit of your money, a small percentage of it's going back to conservation. So, we're trying to give back as we move forward.
You do. You give back so much. Just giving back the history of our industry is just so unique, gang. You've never seen this. You're just going to be blown away, because even those of you that know everything out there, you're going to freak out when you find out you don't know everything. You're going to learn so much. The one thing, like I talked about last week, that I thought was so unique was the men that signed the Declaration of Independence were outdoorsmen and fishermen, gang. You can't even, they wore a funny wig, powdered wig, but my gosh, they were outdoorsmen, and they wrote it into the Constitution.
David, these guys, real quick short story on this. It was 1732 along the banks of a place called the Schuylkill River, which is where Philadelphia is now. And these guys got together and formed this little club called the Schuylkill Fishing Club, nicknamed the Castle. And they did it under the guise so they wouldn't be arrested and hung for treason, because these are the guys that wrote the Declaration of Independence, and they wrote our Constitution. They were fishermen meeting under the guise of a fishing club to write the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution and declare independence from Great Britain. They were all fishermen. George Washington, Ben Franklin. I mean, you've heard the names. William Bradford, Paul Revere. These are all the guys that are members of this club. They're all fishermen. And they wrote the Constitution and declared our independence. I mean, that is the one thing that I uncovered during the research that just sent chills up my back. That our forefathers were all fishermen meeting in secret
Yeah.
under the guise of being fishermen and meeting at a fishing club.
The secret fishing club was pretty incredible to learn about, huh, Ron?
Tell him to tell the part about where George Washington would carry that little kit in.
Yeah. George Washington actually had a primitive fishing kit that he kept in a little tin, and we have a picture of it from the museum, from the Washington Museum, George Washington Museum, of his fishing kit that he actually carried with him 24/7, and he carried it with him into battle. So fishing back in the day, it was an act of survival. You weren't fishing for sport. You were fishing to feed yourself, feed your families. And if you couldn't fish and hunt and farm, you were pretty much out of luck. So
You weren't going to eat. You weren't going to the grocery store.
yeah, exactly.
No, there is just so much. And then when you get into the fly fishing and the tarp, like we started the show out tonight talking about the tarpon. Michael and I both got to do something pretty unique in our lives. We got to be with Tom Rowland the last few days doing podcasts with Tom Rowland. And Tom Rowland is a big deal on the East Coast. He's been on TV for 30 plus years, just like you have been on the West Coast. Tom Rowland's kind of the equivalent of Michael on the East Coast. Michael and I both got to be on his podcast. And then he came and he was my guest on Friday on my podcast. You took parts of Tom Rowland's stuff with the tarpon stuff, and you let us all see what it was all about. And that whole jumping a tarpon, I talk about it when I'm on Tom's podcast, because there's so much stuff that we don't know about on the West Coast, even though we think we're the best fishermen in the world on the West Coast. I didn't know what they were talking about I jumped a tarpon. The first day I went, the first one I hooked, he jumped out of the water and threw my hook, and I'm like, okay, now I know what you mean. I jumped, and that day I went back and I was like, I jumped 6 today.
Exactly.
I'm part of the group now, man. I jumped, and you guys don't understand. The tarpon's probably one of the hardest fish in the world to hook because their jaw is as hard as the table.
They're prehistoric.
They jump like, you think a Dorado jumps or a Marlin jumps? That tarpon, the minute he tastes the steel of that hook, the thing's launching himself all over the place till he gets rid of that hook.
They're like 4, 5, 6 feet long, and they're jumping 10, 15, 20 feet in the air, and they're 200 pounds, and you're fishing them in 10 feet of water. You're right there on the beach. You know, I'm hooked up, and some little girl's walking along the beach right next to me in her bathing suit. It's amazing. The fisheries back east are so different than what we have out here. I think it's primarily because they have a lot of shallows. Like in Mexico, you know, you got your mangroves, and you've got a lot of brackish water that from Lake Okeechobee that flows down through the Everglades there and discharges out in the Gulf. I just think it's just a completely different environment to fish than we have out here. Our West Coast is pretty steep. Our drop offs are pretty steep, and they're pretty close to the beach, and it's, you know, it's a more robust, rugged, vibrant ocean than they have back there in terms of the waters. So it's an amazing fishery back there. You know, you're poling, you're not using your motor. The guys are just poling, eyeballing bonefish, looking for tarpon, permit. It's an amazing fishery. And what's interesting is back in the early 1940s, Joe Brooks and a couple other guys, Lefty Cray, Ted Williams, you might have heard of Ted Williams, the baseball player. They all started saltwater fly fishing back there, and it really had never been done before. And they kind of introduced the world to the possibilities of what could be caught on a fly in the salt water. And that sport has grown exponentially over the last 50 years. And it is a phenomenal fishery.
And you go down that rabbit hole with that too, and you get to see these old video footages of all these guys he was talking about and doing it and bringing that here and doing what Michael was just talking about. This history of sport fishing is not something that any of you want to miss. You want to check it out for $4.99. Get that first episode and check it out and watch that, and then see if you're not like Ron. When it ended, you were right there in the next episode. Ron binge watched the whole thing, I think, in 2 or 3 days. He was done. That's what Kelly and I did. We just said, that's it. The only time we took a break was when I was doing my podcast, and I was right back in it.
Yeah, I was going to say, if you do decide to watch it, try to set yourself up to win. Don't try to watch it. It's not a reel. It's not a little 10-second or 20-second or 30-second. You know, I got 1 million views from it. This is really the history of the sport. And if you love to fish and you set yourself up to win when you watch it, I think it's going to be something that really etches itself into your soul, and it'll make you appreciate your love for the sport more than you already have, I think. And at least that was our goal, is to try to really infuse the sport into people that love to fish, as well as introducing it to sport to people that may not participate in the sport, especially parents that may not fish. And hopefully the kids get their kids inspired enough to take them out and take them fishing for an afternoon and introduce them to it. You introduce a kid to a fishing at that age, you've given him a gift that he'll enjoy for the rest of his life, or her life.
And I think the timing of this docuseries is perfect for, like you said a little while ago, we are under enormous pressure. And our friend that's on here, Randy, he's talking about how the golf and how Florida, how they're taking, or you talked about Florida, Michael, and Randy's talking about the golf and how they're taking everything away. We thought it was kind of unique to California. It's not. Like Michael said before, the powers to be have already let the cat out of the bag. They want to abolish fishing in the United States of America we don't know why, but as you watch this and you go, I don't want to live in a world where you can't throw a line in the water. I don't want to live in that world. I mean, Ron and I are down here in Mexico. It's pretty much free for all. It's kind of like it was in the 50s and 60s growing up in California.
Baja is the wild, wild west.
It is so fun. And you know what, Michael, on this whole drive, the only time I was afraid, people go, aren't you afraid driving around? The only time Ron and I were afraid was last night and this morning when we were in California. We were like, we got to get out of here. We got to get out. Woo! We went across the border at, I don't know, 11 o'clock today, and you just felt the pressure leave. And we made it. We made it. We're back.
It's a different world.
And we've had contact with police down here today. We've had contact with the border security down here today, and it all went just so smoothly, and they were just so nice. No dripping, no meanness, none of that crap you guys read about. You know why? Because they're allowed to fish.
Bill Shedd. We got to do a wonderful interview with Bill Shedd on this film, and Bill and his family started AFCO, and Bill worked with his dad coming out of high school in the late '60s, as his dad started, building the company, and that family has done so much for the sport, kind of below the radar. They don't ever look for any accolades or pat themselves on the shoulder or promote themselves, but they've given millions and millions of dollars to conservation and in support of our sport. And in the interview, Bill said the single greatest threat that we face as an industry is the extreme environmentalist. That's when you talk about overfishing, you talk about water pollution, you talk about plastic in the oceans, chemicals, runoff, fertilizer, all this stuff, all those negatives that we're facing as an industry, as a sport. The single greatest threat that we're facing is the extreme environmentalist. And they've got hundreds of millions of dollars behind them coming through the United Nations on this 30 for 30 program, which is just the tip of the iceberg. And it's like Bill said, he's involved in this stuff. He goes to the meetings. He's got relationships in Sacramento and Washington. He's tied in with all these bigwigs. And he said that's the greatest fear that we all have, is that bus has already left the station. And if we don't shut it off, it's going to run us over before we even knew it hit us. Like you said, they don't even have to announce that they're going to set up, like on the 12th. They only have to announce 14 days before that they're going to have a meeting that's going to determine the future of the sport. Laguna Beach did it down here when they closed our beaches. They didn't even announce it. They didn't even announce it. They ran it through the city council in a meeting that hadn't even been publicized and voted unanimously. Oh, yeah, we don't want to have anybody on the beach with a fishing rod. They could hurt the fisheries. They could hurt a fish. It's just insane. So Laguna Beach shut down our fisheries for 8 miles without ever even having a public hearing that was pre-announced. It was predetermined before they even opened the doors. And that's what Bill was saying on this extreme environmental stuff. They don't have a lot of numbers. They got a lot of money, and they got a lot of really good attorneys, and they have a really good handle on how to manipulate the system under the radar. So I hate to quit harping on it because we're here to have a good time and we all love to fish. But if we don't protect it, it's not going to be here. So just let your voice be heard. Sign up, buy the VIP package, and we'll put the money in there for you.
Yeah, gang, and you can see the VIP when you click on the link. Just scroll down a little bit. Yeah, the first thing you're going to see is the $4.99. Just kind of go down the rabbit hole, look around a little bit. Somebody was saying they couldn't see the VIP. It's in there, I promise you. And if you're having any problem at all, call me personally. I'll help you get through it. We'll show you what to do because this is super important. The really big thing about this is somebody's going to be walking through your living room or sitting down next to you on the couch, and they're going to get into this too, and they're going to go, what do you mean they're going to take away fishing? Look at all these people that's lives have changed. Look at all this that has happened to the United States of America because of fishing. I don't want to live on a planet where you can't fish. That doesn't even make sense to me. And I don't think you guys do either. And I don't think the people that are making these decisions, yeah, there's a handful, but the rest of the people, they don't even know what they're doing because there's so much garbage going on that we need to just make everybody aware of what's going on. That's why I talk about it every day on my show. That's why I talk about it every time I get anybody on the show that has any knowledge about what's going on. We got to talk about this. We got to take kids fishing, but you got to introduce everybody to this docuseries. This is our blood. This is why we do what we do, Ron.
Renee just wrote in and asked if we had any history on the evolution of hoop netting. And actually, I filmed with Ben when they had their very first prototype net. And we went over to the island and did some hoop netting with them on their first prototype net. So I don't have that in the film, but it's somewhere I could dig it out, I think. But it was pretty amazing. I was blown away. And it's really become a pretty sophisticated way to catch lobster. And I'm glad they moved it up from midnight.
Yeah. That was crazy.
Everybody'd be too drunk to fish by midnight.
Yeah, that was a crazy thing they had going on. Gang, Ron DeSantis just did something a couple days ago. We didn't even talk about it. I had Jimmy from Everglades Fish Company on my show a few months ago when he was down in Cabo, and we talked about the restoration of the Everglades and how there's not enough fresh water released into the Everglades anymore. When they built the Alligator Highway and they put the levees in and they stopped the flow from Okeechobee down into the Everglades, and then all of a sudden the mangroves started to grow and all the grass started to die. Ron DeSantis just signed a huge thing to restore the Everglades back to where they were. Sure. And that's going to be a big thing. Michael and I will talk about that. I'll have some clips from Jimmy on the show because Jimmy opened my eyes to seeing what the hell was going on. Because my silly butt, I love fishing the mangroves down here in Mexico. I think it's just such a bitch and fishery with the snook and all the other stuff. And then Jimmy was like, wait a minute, Dave, you don't understand. These are an invasive plant that are choking out the grass down here. And the grass is the great filter. And that grass needs to be there. So I'll put out some clips this week of my interview with Jimmy. And then Michael and I will talk more about it next week on the show. It's the middle of the night right now. For me, it's 7 o'clock down, and I'm going to get up and drive another 1,000,000 miles tomorrow. So we're going to wrap this thing up. I hope you all had fun tonight. Think about your questions. Michael will be with us every Tuesday. And we got 15 new people that just bought the docuseries tonight, Mike.
Well, thank you guys, and thank you, David, for promoting it. That was a nice idea. I'm glad you didn't tell me in advance, what your plan was, but I think it's a brilliant idea. I got a feeling maybe Elliot had something to do with that, right?
Oh yeah, hell yeah! You put the QR code up, put the ticker across it. He got in here and helped me produce it. It was a little present for you, buddy.
Tim just wrote in about Bass Pro Shops and Cabela's. I've been talking to Johnny Morris's executive secretary for 4 years, trying to get in touch with Johnny directly to see if they'd want to be a part of this or support it in any way. And she said, "Oh, I've sent her some clips about Johnny when he first started his store and how his dad gave him 8 feet of shelf space to open up a tackle shop in the back of his dad's liquor store, and that's how Bass Pro Shop started. And then Johnny won some tournaments, and I just feel like it's such a natural fit for Bass Pro Shops to step up and be involved in this and help us get the word out, but they just haven't yet. So one of the local managers here at the Irvine store jumped all over. He said, "Oh my God, what can we do to help?" So he put up posters. We gave him some QR codes like you have, Dave, and they put them on postcards. And they're running an hour-long loop of the series and their monitors there at the Irvine store. So that's going on, and hopefully it'll just keep growing from there. And,
I believe it's going to. And Randy Roth, there's something really cool. If you haven't watched the pod. I do this podcast 6 days a week, gang. I have so many phenomenal guests, just like Michael, that bring so much information and energy to the podcast. Randy, what you would really enjoy because of where you're at, the Crystal, I'm reading all the things you're posting, the Crystal River and the West Coast of Florida and Tampa Bay and all that stuff. Watch my podcast with Captain Miranda Adams. It is so phenomenal. Besides the fact that she was on Naked Afraid, besides the fact that she completed Naked Afraid, she's a licensed captain and she's a guide, and she is just a really good human being. And we did a great podcast her and I together, and she's going to come back on again. And you probably even know her, Randy, because it sounds like you guys are paddling around in the same water, taking people out. So Miranda Adams is a really phenomenal human being. You'll love her interview on my podcast. Her and I had a really fun time, and she's out there doing it every day, and she knows how important it is to keep this fishing thing going just like you do. So check her out, gang. We have so many great podcasts. Michael Fowlkes, thank you so much again for joining us on Tuesday. You will be with us next Tuesday. I will be at my house in Cabo. We will both be able to do it at noontime. This is way too late for us. This is way past our bedtime.
And Matt says that she's hot.
She's not bad to look at. She's not as hot as Kelly, but she's okay.
All right, everybody. Thank you so much for tuning in. I appreciate your support, and let's keep this sport alive for generations to come.
All right, everybody. Thank you very much. Have a great night. Talk to you soon. Bye. I'll see you tomorrow at 6:00. Bye.